Hi, good Vach. This is Rabbi Tzim Mendel of Congregation Kahal B'nai Yisrael, community of Jewish friends, and we were reading Parshas Vayatze, and Yaakov Avinu, our father Yaakov, prays to Hashem that he should protect him and bring him home safely and b'shalom, in peace. So there's this beautiful story that a Mendel of Vizhnitzer would say, quoted by Rav Zevin, that there was a chassid that was very, very poor and had to make a wedding. He had to marry off his daughter. And he comes to the Rebbe, and Rebbe Levi Yitzchak Baditchva says to him, you know what? Buy yourself a lottery ticket and you'll make a lot of money. And he says, Rebbe, with all due respect, okay, I'm sure I have 100% faith in what the Rebbe says, among tzaddikim, but the way it was those days, that even if someone won a lottery ticket, it would take a long time till he gets the money, till the government gave him the money. So what do I do till then? Especially I have an older daughter that's, thank God, a kala. She's a bride. And I have to make a wedding. What am I going to do to make the wedding? And the Rebbe thinks, and he says to me, you know what? Till that happens, you'll have money also. I'm giving you a special bracha, special blessing, that you'll have money till then also. Okay? He leaves the Rebbe's house, and going back home, he stops off at an inn for a night's sleep. In the inn, there was also a very influential government person who was staying there as well. And this government guy had a dream that there's a Jew in the same place as him that has a winning lottery ticket. Anyway, so he sends his people in the middle of the night to all the rooms, knocking on the door. Is there a Jew here? Is there a Jew here? Finally, he comes to this guy's room. The guy wakes up. He says, yes, I am Jewish. And he says, do you have a lottery ticket? So he says, yes, I do. He says, well, the boss wants you. He goes to his room and he says, please sell me a lottery ticket. He says, no, I'm not selling this for all the money in the world. He says, I'm going to give you, it came 1,000 rubles. No, I'm not giving it to you. So the government official says to the guy, to his helper over there, like, you know, just grab it away from this Jew boy, and I'll take it. You know, I don't need his permission. And he grabs it away from the guy, and the guy's like broken. And this government guy was nice enough, so to say, you know what? I told you I'll give you 1,000 rubles for it. Here's 1,000 for it, because just because I'm a nice guy. Anyway, the Yidel was, what do they call salt and pepper, right? Salt and sugar, sour and sweet, sweet and sour, whatever they call it. Anyway, what's he going to do now? But that's it. He knows the Rebbe gave him a bracha, so something else will happen, but he was pretty broken about it. Anyway, next week he made a beautiful wedding for his daughter, and he had enough to really make a beautiful chasna. And not long after, the government came up with the money for the lottery ticket that he had. Yes, the government guy gave him his ticket, sort of like he switched with him. The government guy thinking that was the winning ticket. Meanwhile, it wasn't. And his ticket was the right one, and he won the amount of money that he was supposed to win with his original ticket. Anyway, so he goes back to Rebbe Levi Baditchva says, oh, Mazel Tov, you made chasna, and I know exactly what happened, he says, but let me tell you what happened in heaven. What happened was, you were supposed to make the money from the lottery, and the first lottery ticket was supposed to be the winning ticket. However, for whatever reason, your mazel went down. So what I had to do was, I had to get a hold of the angel of dreams, and he told this guy a story about your ticket, which by then was not true because that was a losing ticket, not a winning ticket. Originally it was the winning ticket. So he got that ticket, and meanwhile, you got the other ticket, and that became the winning ticket just because you're supposed to get the money eventually. Let's speak a little bit about the Parsha. So what happens is that Torah says, as we mentioned before, Rachel was beautiful in every way, and of course, doesn't only mean physically, if it means at all physically, but it means she was a very high person. And Leah, Eina Leah Rakas, Leah's eyes were wet with tears, Rashi says, because she was always crying, because people said the older daughter goes to the older son and the younger to the younger son, meaning that she'll have to marry Esav, God forbid. So the night of the wedding comes, and Lavan switches Leah instead of Rachel, and Rachel, the good-hearted Rachel, gives her the simanim, the signs that she made up between Yaakov and her, so that he should think that she is really Rachel. Reason why they had to do this was because Lavan was such a bluffer and such a faker that they figured they'll do something dishonest. And at the wedding, he makes this big lavish wedding, and everybody comes, and they're all singing Leah, 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 and Yaakov didn't understand it, but meanwhile he was the joke of the town, because they were really saying that that's really Leah. Nobody told it to him directly, but it was a good joke for them. The next morning he sees Rachel. He sees Leah, he sees Leah. So, what's going on over here? What's the story behind the story? Leah was always davening to Hashem, please, I cannot marry Esav of Russia. I don't want to marry Esav. No one ever told her she will, and it was the people of the world that said, so what, People of the world called Esav. So what? Yes, we find in Chazal that we have to consider what the world says on a certain level, but still, she was this great tzaddikus, and knowing what a Russia and what an evil person Esav is, we can understand. But look what davening does. Davening made even the evil Lavan, the Russia Lavan, to try to play this trick, and turned over the whole thing so that now she married Yaakov first. And, everybody says, Rachel was this great tzaddikus that she gave her the signs. And then Yaakov later took her in and stayed with her and didn't divorce her and get rid of her after this happens. But I'm always thinking, Taka, what's the story with Leah? So by the firstborn, Ruvain, she named him Ruvain because Hashem saw my poverty, ba'ani, how lowly I am. Says the Targum Unclus, Hashem saw me in my embarrassment. Like a poor person that has to take money is embarrassed. And the embarrassment stays because the next day he has to get money for the next meal. And it goes on and on. So too, the embarrassment stayed with Leah. And embarrassment does a lot for a person. So much so that she named her son after this embarrassment. That's one interpretation in Rashi, that she felt so terrible. But the other interpretation in Rashi is that Ru'u ma bein b'ni lebein chami. Everything was on a higher level by the Avos HaKadosh. When we're talking about the matriarchs and the patriarchs, we're talking about the highest spiritual people that ever lived. And she saw in open prophecy that this son, Ruvain, is not going to be like her mother-in-law's son. Not like the mother-in-law's firstborn, Esav, that sold his firstborn rights. But he's going to try to help Yosef HaTzadik, his youngest brother, which we see in the subsequent Parshas, that when Yosef was down in the pit, and all the brothers, and they were considering killing him, and Reuven was the one who came to try to help him. So she says, Reuven, look at the son, look at my son, and look at my mother-in-law's son. When there are two interpretations in Rashi, they're separate and they're connected. There's always a connection between the two. So I think we could learn, so many of the lessons from the Avos HaKadoshim, from the mothers, the matriarchs and the patriarchs, we could learn from, the lessons for us, and so many of them we can't learn from. We don't have open prophecy like her. So we derive from this respect for them, and to have Emunah Pshuta and Emunah Tzadikim, and how great they were. But perhaps both interpretations complement each other. They're both connected. When one is embarrassed, and one knows how lowly he is, and what an embarrassment it is between him and Hashem, one has two choices. Either to go into atzvus, to fall apart and to give up, to become depressed, Yiddishkeit-wise, spiritual-wise, I don't have to do mitzvahs, Hashem doesn't like me, blah, 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 and all that foolishness. Or one can build himself up. And she saw in her prophecy how great her son's going to be, and she said, all the embarrassment is worth it. If I'm going to have such a son, I'm not like my mother-in-law. And this gave her the chizuk and the strength to go further. Deep lesson. The 10th of Kislev, which is tonight and tomorrow, Matzah Shabbos and Sunday this year, is the yahrzeit of the great Rabbi Nachum Friedman ben Reb Shalom Yosef, the Shatna or Husyatna from Lemberg, who didn't leave any children and who was killed by the Nazis in יימח שמם וזכרם. And this great man, when he was going in the cattle cars with who knows how many hundreds or thousands of other Jews squashed together, there was a chassid of his on one side and a irreligious person on the other side. And in recent years, the irreligious person, who now lives in Israel, or at least a few years ago, if he's still alive, and he was a reporter for a non-religious paper in Israel. I don't know which one, Yediot or one of the other papers. And when again, sadly enough, the hatred between religious and irreligious began, he wrote an article, and in the article he said, before you knock from people, the religious people, and their leaders, let me tell you that I'm only here today alive and well because of a religious leader. This was this Shatna, this was Siyatna Rebbe. It was yesterday night. We were in the cattle cars, squashed all together. And it came to a certain point, and the Shatna Rebbe said to us, jump out now, you could save your lives. So the chassid jumped out. I'm not a chassid. So I said, Rabbi, so why don't you jump out if you can save yourself? And he said, I have to go where Klal Yisrael goes, where the Jewish people are going. For whatever reason, he felt he has to stay there. But you could save your life. And I saved my life, he says. So look at their great leaders. Beautiful story. Should be of Simcha. Of Simcha is better. We'll stop here. Have a great week. And may Hashem send us brachas for all of us and all the Yeshus that we need. L'chaim tov shalom. The great Yontif of Chanukah is coming. Have a great week.